Welcome to the WanderLearn podcast. I'm your host, France Tapon. In this episode, I'm going to be interviewing Ma-Lushka Colindres. What's interesting about this episode is that you will not actually hear my voice. I edited it out because it's a YouTube video and I was far away from the microphone, and I just thought it would be good for the documentary that I'm making about the unseen Africa. And so you're just going to hear her talk. On YouTube, I have some overlays that show the question I'm asking her, but even in the audio-only format, it's still quite useful. The entire interview is less than 12 minutes long, and I think you'll find it interesting. She talks about her life, having lived in El Salvador, United States, and different parts of Africa. And now she's thinking about moving to England. She's from Haiti originally. She is now living in Dakar, Senegal. Enjoy this episode with Ma-Lushka Colindres.
Hi, my name is Ma-Lushka Colindres. I'm what you call a third culture kid from the US, but originally from Haiti. And I've lived in several countries. So I've been able to live in Central America, Caribbean, El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, and the US, different states. And now I am living in Africa. For the last 3 years, I've been here in Africa. Right now, I'm working for an international organization, Save the Children. In terms of helping Africans, I think the best way is actually to educate oneself and not to go with the stereotypes. So by learning more about Africa, by learning more and considering Africa as a continent, not as a country, to actually learn about the diversity in the cultures and the many historical facts, I think it will really help Africa more in that manner if people take the time to discover what Africa, this continent, is really about. The way that I was blessed to have Senegal to move my family to compared to some other countries like Niger, like Mali or Burkina Faso. One of the things that I have enjoyed here is the fact that I can express myself and not be worried, especially as a woman, around the level of safety here. This is one of the safest countries that I've ever been to most of the countries, even the US, El Salvador, Haiti, Guatemala, feeling so safe and walking around in the streets at any time at night. People here are extremely friendly and very open. And one of the things I have to say that really marked me is the tolerance in terms of religion. So in this country, they celebrate all of the Muslim holidays and all of the Christian holidays. This is something that you don't find often. So whether it is Christmas or whether it's Ramadan or even the day of the Virgin Mary Assumption in August 15th is a holiday. So that's not something that you find in many other African countries, in that mixture where you have, major ceremonies. They will have a Muslim representative, say a prayer, and then they'll have a Catholic representative say a prayer at the same time, and very mixed in terms of families. And that's something that's very different to many of different African countries that I've been to. Being a Black non-African, in Africa comes with its perks, and it also comes with its downside. They will expect that I adopt certain culture, certain behavior as a woman on top of it. The moment I do open my mouth and they see I don't speak the local language and I am dressed differently, they'll put me in the Tubab category, but a Black Tubab, because Tubab is foreigner white, but I'm a foreigner Black, in that manner. But at the same time, it also opens doors, whereas my counterpart that are white and foreign, they may not be invited or integrated in certain setting because automatically, that whiteness will appear. And I may be able to slide into a ceremony or a gathering without showing major differences in that manner. So that allows me to open doors, certain discussion I'm capable of having. So there's conversation I'm able to do that my other counterpart colleagues or friends that are white are not able to bring in because it will ruffle sensitivities. What took me a long time to figure out about this region, in the States will have time is money. You're in a hurry, you want to get things done, you want to get results. Here, I do find there is a laid back attitude in the sense that nothing is really that urgent. You need to take the time to drink your coffee. You need to take the time to socialize. You really need to take the time to greet and not just go straight dive into business. And so that's something here that I have learned around, really take the time to acknowledge a person, to talk to them, to look at them in the eye before going towards what you're looking for, the purpose of your question or what you need from them. In OCDE developed countries, we still haven't reached, that universal healthcare, that universal education. So continent like Africa has a long way to go. There's a lot of progress that has been made, but organizations like, non-governmental organizations, they're going to be around for a while until we get to a point of humanity understanding that we're not alone on this planet. We're not alone on this continent. And we really need to be sharing our resources in a manner and utilizing our resources without waste. So that way it is enough for everyone to go around. People that are concerned with the fact that those that are going to countries to aid are actually the abusers also, I think they need to understand that there is an added responsibility for people that are going to help, in development or in humanitarian. However, in society in general, abuse happens all the time. Moving from El Salvador to Western Central Africa was an eye-opener as a woman. Coming from Latin America, where my entire career was with women leaders, women bosses, that was something that really was a shock to me. And I had to do a lot of adaptation because I came into a region where it is male dominated. I mean, even if we think, in the Americas, we still haven't reached that parity, but we take for granted everything, a lot of stuff that women have been able to achieve in the Americas. So here, gender has been something major. I've had to teach myself how to talk and how to navigate because I'm a very outspoken, vocal activist and so on. But I really had to learn to moderate my way of talking so I don't ruffle sensitivities and gender-wise so I could get my message across. So whether I'm doing training or whether I'm talking to officials in high position, I've had to learn to adjust, in that manner. But one of the things I've had to do is because of the fact that I'm also Black and I look African from West Africa, I also often have to make sure from the very beginning that they realize that I'm American or that I'm Haitian, or else I may not be taken or heard, in that manner. And so that's something I've had to teach myself from the very beginning. I always start to say, hey, I come from the US, I'm Haitian, my last residence was El Salvador. So please excuse my language, but so I have to make sure of that, or else there may be complete shutdown in the conversation and a lack of respect. So that's something in that manner I've really had to do. I've also had to look at, pay attention on the way I dress, because whether I want to or not, there are cultural norms here that have to be respected. So before going to a country, if it's more predominantly Muslim, I haven't had to wear a veil, but I've had to make sure that I'm not exposing too much skin. And I've had to also accept the fact that I will go places and men will not greet me because I'm a woman, in that. So there's a lot of adjustment I've had to make gender-wise, from the Americas, Europe, and to here, because these are cultural norms, especially in terms of gender. And that's something that I've been learning to navigate. I've made a few faux pas, but I've been learning to navigate and to accept, but it has been difficult, in the transition. That's one of my most difficult, I have to say, transition I had to make. They're very child friendly. So they really adore children. So this is a place where I have no qualms, leaving my son in the car he's a 10-year-old, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, rushing into the supermarket, at the beach. Even though you're keeping an eye, it's not the same way that you're keeping an eye because everyone in the community is keeping an eye on your child. And this is a place where even if I'm telling my son, for example, I could be walking supermarket or, in front of a vendor and telling my son, that he shouldn't behave that way. Senegalese will stop me and tell me, ma'am, this is a child. There's no point of you being upset with this child. He doesn't understand. He just wants to play. So don't be mad at him. And they will, and I'm not the only one. So I have other friends, other moms that will tell me the same thing, other dads also. So here there is an interesting culture, in terms of child rearing and really the value on children in that manner. Now, on the other hand, I also have to say that it's very helpful for, single mom. I didn't start off as a single mom here, but as a single mom now, I do have to say that the context allows me to keep an equilibrium with work and social life balance and doing everything that's required for my son. But it does allow, having the support and the help around. There's a lot of activities for children, all types of prices. So they do offer a variety of activities for families. So this is an activity-rich area. There's a lot to do with children for families here compared to Europe, even the US and the Americas, and so on. They scold adults for being too strict. However, the way they raise their children also, it's in a manner of full respect, in that sense of possibly not even requiring for an adult, because any adult, in this culture, you could tell any adult can address the child to say, what you're doing is incorrect. You need to stop and without fear. So any adult will address a child or a parent, if there's a behavior that's inadequate. There's no qualms about that. That is true here. The future of Africa rests in the hands of youth. I see a lot of change happening with technology and youth, where youth is going to have a bigger presence in terms of politics, a bigger presence in terms of their voice and say, because the last century, it has been very major adult wise, older adult dominated. So I do see youth taking over. It's technology that's going to drive this in the sense that the access to be able to sell easily, to be able to share, to pay for things through their phone, to be able to reinvent makes it, because we used to have traditional jobs, and traditional jobs were for the elders. Traditional jobs were for those that had finished school or had a skill in that matter. But with technology now, youth are able to exchange, to create, whether it is through dance, whether it is through reinventing things, and they're capable of exchanging with more around the continent and around the world. And I think that is by itself, it's a bridge and it's an open door where the elders you won't need to be that old anymore to take over. So these youth, they're having a greater economic independence or boom that their previous parents or grandparents didn't have because of that access to technology.
And that concludes this episode of the WanderLearn podcast, where we explore travel, technology, and transformation. If you'd like to see the show notes with links to what we talked about, or if you'd like to comment on the show, or if you'd like to ask me a question, then go to WanderLearn.com and click on this episode. If you'd like to connect with me, just remember Tapon. That's my first initial and my last name. Tapon is the username I use on all social media. You can also get to my website by going to ftapon.com. And here's one last reason to remember Tapon. If you like what I do and would like to get rewarded for supporting my projects, then go to patreon.com/ftapon. That's where you can pick up some remarkable rewards for as little as $2 a month. And now for 5 quick favors. Number 1, subscribe to the WanderLearn podcast. 2, download it. 3, share it. 4, review it somewhere. And 5, sign up for my newsletter at wanderlearn.com. Our theme music was composed by Eric Stratman. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.